welcome to Leading Entrepreneurs of the World. I am Melissa Ashley, a board member of One Business World. For those of you that are not familiar, Leading Entrepreneurs of the World features entrepreneurs, founders, and business leaders presenting on cutting-edge topics and the latest in industry developments. Our goal is to provide the global business and entrepreneurial communities with a window into the minds of those who are shaping the future of the world. And with that in mind, we are pleased to welcome the co-founder and CEO of Inquire, Cenk Sidar. Cenk Sidar is a global risk expert with vast experience assisting top financial institutions, multinational corporations, risk management firms, and legal firms operating in high-risk regions. Cenk has written and been interviewed by the world's leading newspapers and media organizations, including the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Al Jazeera, and CNBC, to name just a few. He holds multiple degrees in international economics and international relations, European studies, and business administration. He founded Inquire based upon a mission to make organizations knowledge efficient using their patented blend of AI, data science, and human intelligence to deliver context and analysis faster than any other expert knowledge platform. Cenk, we are delighted to have you with us today to talk about human-machine collaboration in the future of work. Maybe we could start by you telling us a little bit more about Inquire and the impetus behind the launch of the company 4 years ago.
Thank you, Melissa. It's a great pleasure to be here. Again, thank you for inviting. So Inquire is basically building the future of work tools for the changing nature and changing requirements of the work culture in 2022, especially with COVID. Many things start changing, as we all know. Especially in knowledge industries, is getting much more challenging to identify who knows what in large organizations, and also getting a good perspective on risk map, and the risk nature requires access to experts in different areas. So we started the company about 4 years ago with the aim of building a global network of experts. As of now, we have about 40,000 experts in 180 countries, and we work with a half of about 50% of the Fortune 100 companies, and we provide access to that network so that companies and investment funds can reach out to our expert network and ask questions on a real-time basis and be educated about risks and opportunities in operating in high-risk markets, as today almost every market and every industry is high risk, as COVID showed us the changing nature of doing business.
Yes, no, it certainly has, unfortunately. So let's start at the beginning, and then we'll delve a little bit further into how COVID has helped us sort of change the nature of our business. So let's start out with defining the future of workforce, because I know with human-machine collaboration, a lot of it has to do with how you define the future of work in the first place. And there's, as you've mentioned to me in passing, there's a lot of different definitions out there. Can you tell us how you define it?
Yeah, I mean, the future of work is a very broad definition today. So it's very difficult to define it, approaching from one aspect. Maybe before COVID, future of work was mostly described with the spirit of AI and potential of job losses, with the artificial intelligence and technology. That's definitely an important aspect of future of work, how AI will eradicate many repetitive and mundane tasks in different industries. And of course, also future of work was described with the physical location of where work has been accomplished. So especially with COVID, a lot of companies moved to out of offices, and people start working from their homes, and that was a major change. And Slack and Zoom technologies have started to be adopted much more faster in many industries. So I think people and companies realize most of the work could be done from their homes, rather than coming to the office. And of course, there's a lot of cultural changes that brings. I mean, when you go to office, you socialize with your colleagues, you brainstorm with them on different challenges and opportunities your business has been facing. And also, you are becoming part of the daily operations much more in an active way. So future of work became an important concept in our business literature, especially with Slack and Zoom. But so basically, those are definitely great technologies and great companies, but those are mostly transitional technologies. They basically enable you to work from home, but there was Skype 10 years ago that we used to use. Incident messaging is a technology that's been used since mid-90s, right? I mean, if you remember, there was AOL, ICQ, there are like different messaging apps. So Slack definitely provides easier way doing business for companies that didn't implement those technologies internally. But those were the transitional technologies that were used by companies in order to create, work from home or hybrid culture in this process, where going to the office was not an option because of the health risk it imposed. So when we're talking about future of work now, I would like to take it a step ahead, because now we're talking about transformational changes in technology. AI is definitely a transformational change, and transformation technology. And we talk about XR technologies, augmented reality and virtual reality. Those are major advances in the technology that would promote and enable decentralized workforces. For instance, we're using Zoom right now, we're seeing our faces. But what if we could sit around the table with each other's holograms and have almost like the, very close experience to reality that, we were like having these meetings in person. Mm-hmm. Many companies, many people will choose that option because you wouldn't look at the screen, but you will look at the real person sitting next to you or across you and discuss your, current business issues. So I think, XR technologies, combination of augmented reality and virtual reality, will change the way we do business. So you will be able to sit with somebody who is in a different country, but will have the perception that you are next to that person. There's a major difference than looking at the screen through a broadband internet connection. We're talking about, there's a lot of discussion about metaverse last 2-3 months. Even Facebook changed its name, from Facebook to Meta. I mean, many people think it was like a PR move, but I think this is more than that, because metaverse is definitely something that already been, entertaining gaming industry and, in different areas. But I think metaverse will be also very interesting for the future of work. There will be, work rooms that, you will be able to get together with your colleagues in metaverse without really looking at the screen. So that's an interesting development and advance in technology that will impact the nature of work in the future. Also, we're talking about Web 3.0, right? Web 3.0 is a major change in the web. Web 1.0 was mostly websites you could read. Web 2.0 are the platforms that you will be able to read and participate, like through social media platforms and e-commerce, etc. Now we're talking about Web 3.0, where you will read, write, and own the platforms. Decentralized autonomous organizations will become, DAOs will be a major part of the business world in coming years. Many businesses will be owned by not LLCs or corporations, but DAOs, by hundreds of people. So those are maybe 10, 15 years of like advances, but we definitely start seeing the impact today. And my company, Enquire, so we are basically building solutions. Okay, if a company has such a decentralized leadership and decentralized workforce, how we, we're not working on bringing them together on in a meeting space, XR technology, but how we can engage those people so they can find the right expert on any subject and they can ask the right questions to those people on a real-time basis. So if I'm based in, if I'm a Big Four consultant in Singapore office and my client asks me a question about Nigerian agriculture industry, how can I identify the right person who worked on that specific area in the past, and how can I engage that person, and how can I provide short answer to my client within minutes, not in days or weeks. So we are working on technologies, identifying expertise within internal and external networks of companies, and how to engage those experts on a real-time basis so the business decisions could be made faster and more efficient in today's fast-pacing business and investment climate.
Interesting. So if I understand correctly, you're keeping your finger on the pulse of a lot of the newer enabling technologies that are being created, and then determining how best to create that mix to help an organization better assess essentially their IP, correct, within their human capital, whoever, to understand how to quickly and efficiently be able to deploy it. Did I get that right?
Exactly, because think about it, the most underutilized asset of companies is their talent force, because many organizations don't have a clue about who knows what in their organizations, especially if those organizations have more than 250, 500 knowledge workers. The best knowledgeable person about Singaporean financial industry may be located in Argentina because maybe she's married to some Argentinian person, so she moved there, right? So location doesn't define our expertise, or education doesn't define our expertise. It's very difficult to identify the right experts within organizations, and in many cases the companies don't identify the right people within their organization, so they go and hire outside consultants, or they retain and spend millions of dollars to consulting firms on the side. So we're basically trying to map out the internal and external network of companies who knows what, and then tap into these networks on an agile, on a real-time basis, so that the internal assets of the companies is being utilized in a maximalist perspective.
That makes a lot of sense, and I would think a senior leadership team would see a lot of value in that. I guess my question would be is they can access their network in real time, but how do you keep it fresh? How are you constantly refreshing that institutional knowledge database, so to speak?
Great question. So for the marketplace product we have, as I mentioned, we have 40,000 experts. We've been adding 1,000 new experts every month to the platform. And those experts are vetted through our teams. We have about a 30 people team that is in charge of our platform. And those people are vetting and identifying the necessary expertise for companies. So, we have blockchain experts in India, in Turkey, in Greece, in Argentina, in many parts of the world. We are sector and industry agnostic. So we have people in every industry, in every country. So we are building the external network, right? And we are building the database of questions and answers in our system. So if a client goes and asks a question about a certain subject, that client can access to the information, that question and the answers anytime. If they want to do an expert call with one of our experts, they can have the recording and the transcription of the call in their platform. On top of it, internal institutionalized knowledge that you just mentioned. or product Lumina is basically enabling large organizations to keep the database of the questions they ask internally in a centralized manner, so that other members of the company, other employees of the company can go and search questions and asked by other people in the past, and they can see who answered those questions and who got the best ratings for their answers, and then engage those people in a again for a similar challenge. So basically, for our internal product and our external product, we've been working on creating databases of questions and answers, so that you don't need to reinvent the wheel every time we have a certain challenge, and you can go and look at the previous engagements that have been done by your colleagues in your organization.
Interesting. And so you think in the next, give me the timeline if you would. So in the next 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, this human machine collaboration is going to start to become more front and center, or do you think it's going to take longer? What's the timeline here?
Look, I think it happens now. So we started the company more from the human intelligence perspective, and we start building our machine and algorithm. I think we are in a unique position to optimize human, machine, and data as well. So I think those are the three components of optimal solution in the knowledge industry. Because look, there are a lot of companies just looking at the data patterns and trying to give you insights on some business and investment trends, right? It makes sense in many areas, but also it doesn't give you the full picture, because the human judgment always plays a vital role in understanding and making the right decisions. So I think also from the machine side, like AI, or I mean, AI is again a combination of machine and data. But if you talk about AI, if you think about AI, I mean, we can't expect the AI to make the business decisions for your company, because again, you need certain skills that that only human can have it. Like like I didn't talk about EQ, like emotional intelligence, talking about judgment, social cultural differences, like certain areas that you need, like the human touch. So that's why I think today AI is a level that I think maybe you can get 40-50% of the work done by AI and 50% by human, and definitely that ratio going to increase in the future. I think probably going to go to 70-80% levels in 3 to 5 years, as AI has been advancing very fast. But still, you will need the human judgment, the human touch. Even if it's like 5%, it will be decisive to make the right decision. So that's why I think, especially in knowledge industry, I can't say that for all industries. Like, you probably won't need, unfortunately, supermarket cashiers in 10 years. Even today, if you go to any supermarket in the US, I mean, you will see there are more automated checkouts than cashiers. It's sad, because it gives, I mean, it eliminates certain jobs from the job market. I mean, many people, we will be looking at autonomous cars, maybe the job of driving will not be available in 10-15 years. Maybe all Ubers will be driven by automated, autonomous cars. There won't be need of Uber drivers. Those are social risks, to the society, because you need to provide, certain things to those people to be able to survive in the world. But knowledge industry is different. You probably will need lawyers, even though 90%
more so, maybe.
I mean, I think even if 95% of the legal jobs could be done by AI, you still need 5%, legal personal judgment on these issues. The same thing with the business executives. So I think knowledge industry workers are luckier than other sectors because change will happen a little bit slower, and there will be continuous need for knowledge workers, business leaders. However, still most of the work will be augmented by machine and data as well. So that's why there's a need for platforms that would kind of bring all these three assets together and provide the best decision-making tools to decision makers in business and investment world. And Enquire has been working towards that goal.
That's super interesting. I mean, it makes me think back, as you mentioned, Web 0.1 to Web 0.3. It's almost big data 0.1 to big data 0.3, right? Because back 10, 12 years ago, we would talk a lot about big data. And yes, we could aggregate all the data, but then we didn't really have the capability to really analyze and assess it. And ultimately, you did need somebody to look at that output and think it through. And it sounds like what you're now bringing us up to is the ability to not only collect the data, but to use different types of technology to be able to really analyze and assess the data, and then really be able to act, have those senior people or those thinkers that can actually action it. Is that sort of a fair comparison?
No, definitely. I mean, I think we are betting on the increasing value of human judgment in business, and we don't believe as a company that the human component will be totally disposable. So that's why we've been making like a human intelligence a major part of our solution. Even if we investing a lot in AI, NLP, we have many data scientists and AI experts working for a company. We also going and recruiting, onboarding experts throughout the world that knows about certain subjects. So we are trying to create the optimal solution. But you mentioned about Web 3.0 again. That's very interesting because only a small group of people have been talking about this right now, and there's mostly in the blockchain and technology world. But the future work will be closely impacted by that revolution. Because think about it, if Uber company now is owned by a company that is public, right? So they're is a proper company structure. But imagine Web 3.0 Uber will be an Uber network owned by drivers that earn tokens every time they drive somebody. They can use those tokens to pay rent, or they can accumulate their tokens to increase their share of the company. So there will be decentralized Ubers, there will be decentralized Reddit, there will be decentralized Amazon.com in the future. So that is changing the way we do business, because in a typical traditional corporation, there's a lot of competition internally for promotions, for getting ahead of the other vice president sitting next to you, or there are a lot of office dynamics happening. In Web 3.0 organizations owned by DAOs, there will be competition, but there will be more collaboration, because there will be owned interest, owned shared ownership of the company. So
it's the guild of the future, right? It's like the old-fashioned guilds, except it'll be technically driven.
Yeah, I know there are a lot of negative aspects of the future, right? The elimination of jobs, etc. But maybe being naive and optimistic, but the Web 3.0 revolution will create more collaborative and more friendly work culture, so that you will be competing with other DAOs and other platforms, other companies, but you need to collaborate internally. And how are you going to collaborate? Most of the collaboration going to happen in the knowledge space, and you need to tap into others' brain and knowledge, how to get things done more efficient and more powerful. And platforms like us, enabling that knowledge distribution internally, will play an important role in Web 3.0 world that we will be getting in very soon.
It's fascinating. It's so much to think about. So let me ask you this, how would you suggest a CEO of a company that hasn't really yet dipped their toe into the whole decentralized pool, the human capital disbursement? How would you suggest they get started? Where do you look first?
Look, I'm many times surprised that the whole industry is not ready. I mean, again, we talking to a lot of consulting companies, major knowledge companies, industries, and unfortunately, the future of work concept is very narrowly defined by working from home and Slack and Zoom and Microsoft Teams. I mean, there are a lot of other perspectives that I think the companies need to be aware of. And, like decentralized workforce that you mentioned, even today, there are a lot of pros and cons. I mean, I think there are a lot of also like cultural aspects, like if you are working from home, how you will compete with somebody going to the office and being next to the CEO all the time, right? I mean, you are definitely disadvantaged in that organization. It doesn't matter like you are allowed to work from home. Maybe it's great. And there are a lot of research now showing younger people and, women prefer to work from home more than the other demographic groups. But how are we going to impact, those, groups of people that, like, I think there may be more discrimination, more disadvantages imposed to, people that, women or younger people that decide to stay home. Even though, I mean, we don't know how the whole thing's going to play out in the next, 3-5 years. There are already a lot of problems in the, gender representation in, large companies and, the leadership roles and the board memberships. I have a feeling that will play a negative role, towards creating more inclusive business culture. Again, I mean, young people learn a lot, being next to somebody who knows more about them. I mean, again, it's great to work from home, but a lot of disadvantages coming from that. And there's a great, there's also great research done, like Slack and Zoom are helpful tools, but also it kind of create like overload collaboration for you, then you can just message somebody or there are a lot of Zoom calls that may be like a short email, right? You're spending like an hour on a Zoom call, that may be like the unnecessary time wasted. So I think that a lot of aspects the future of work discussion should include, and we're missing many parts of it. But the most important thing is how we create the corporate culture, how we create a platform that knowledge could be shared in changing business organizations.
No, I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons to everything. And I think you've done a really helpful job of laying some of them out. I'm going to leave with the phrase that I really liked is betting on the increase in the value of human judgment. So no matter how far along we go with machine and human collaboration and AI, et cetera, there's always going to be the need for that component of human thought. And I think that's where part of what your company does, aside from connecting with those right experts, is making sure that human judgment is still available. So it sounds like you're probably a little bit ahead of the curve. So hopefully everybody that's listening in has learned something and is ready to start thinking more about how to start to follow the trends, because as we all know, as technology continues to move forward, those of us that don't embrace get left behind. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing with us today, Cenk. It was really great to speak with you. We've been listening to Cenk Sidar, who's the CEO and co-founder of Inquire. And thanks very much for joining us today on Leading Entrepreneurs of the World.
Thank you.